So, our focus this week is going to be on evidence based practices. What are they and where do we find them? Throughout this week, you're going to be exploring some resources for evidence based strategies, and we're going to be looking at how we report their impact through effect sizes and evidence levels and learning a little more about that. You're also going to be analyzing some resources for evidence based practices that are effective for working with at risk student populations and closing achievement gaps. And the purpose of all of this is going to help you take this information and apply it to what you're expected to do for your at risk student populations presentation assignment, which is coming up. So, how do we know which initiatives and strategies actually work? In recent years, ESA has moved from recommendations to requirements that school improvement efforts must be rooted in evidence based activities, strategies, or interventions. So that sounds all fine and good, but what does that actually mean? How do we know what an evidence based activity actually is? The one thing that we have to realize is that an evidence based approach is a practice that has a proven, statistically significant effect on improving student outcomes. It's not something that we've just heard might work. It's not something that we think might work. It's not even something that we've tried that's worked with our kids, although it might be. But just because we've tried it and it works with our kids doesn't necessarily mean it's evidence based, although it might be. So, evidence based also doesn't mean going to a vendor website and the vendor saying, "We're really great. Look at all these great things." All of that might have research to support it, but just having a little bit of research to support it doesn't mean that it's truly evidence based. So, evidence based is statistically significant effects that have been proven to improve student outcomes. If you want to learn a little bit more, I have put a link to the Kentucky Department of Education's webpage that actually has all kinds of information about evidence based practices. So when we finish up today, if you're interested in learning more, you can refer back to that website and it's going to have a lot of good information for you. So, one of the things that we need to know is that evidence based approaches have to report their impact. And so that impact is reported often, although not always, as an effect size. So all an effect size is a statistical number that signifies the effect relative to a comparison group. And sometimes you might hear about meta-analyses. And so meta-analyses is simply combined effect size results of multiple studies. So sometimes you might have a study that results in an effect size, but a meta-analysis is a compilation of studies and then they combine those effect sizes together. So if we can go with meta-analyses, it's even better because we know that that information is from a compilation of a multitude of studies and not just one. But in a nutshell, an effect size is just a statistical number that gives us information about the effect of or impact of a practice. So I see those numbers of effect sizes, but that means nothing to me. What's a point 0.2? What's a point 0.9? What's a, point 0.4? What's good? What's not good? So effect size isn't necessarily a black and white definitive thing, but in education in general, these are kind of the general rules of thumb. First thing you need to know is that a positive number means a positive effect on student achievement. So anything positive is good. A 0 means no impact on student achievement, and a negative number is a detrimental effect on student achievement. So that's pretty straightforward, right? But if I'm going in, so I want to look for things that have a positive impact on student achievement, but I want to be thinking about maximum impact. So, how much of a positive impact do I really want to be looking for when I'm taking a look at evidence based practices? So, in general, this is information that is supplied by Corwin and by the research of John Hattie. But in education, an effect size of zero point 0.1 simply means that's what we expect students who are just normally maturing to have anyway. A 0.24 is the impact that they're going to have from just sitting through regular classroom instruction. So basically, it's the what would have happened anyway if they're going to school. All right. So effect sizes of zero point 0.1, zero point 0.2 are a positive impact, but they're the impact that you would probably experience anyway through normal student maturation and regular classroom instruction. So we want to look at things that are higher than that. So between the 0.2 and 0.4 range, we're looking at a significant impact, but it's small. So really we want to try to go higher than that. So when we're looking at the effect size of certain practices, we really want to be looking at things that are at the zero point 0.4 or above. And so a zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.6 is a medium impact, and a zero point 0.6 and above is a large significant impact. So anything above a zero point 0.4 implies that the approach is working quite a bit better than expected, and it would be worth checking out and learning a little bit more about. So effect size is not the only indicator that's used to report impact. In some cases, you might see um, evidence-based impact reported through an improvement index. And an improvement index is just a change in percentile rate. And so it's going to tell you if you implement this particular strategy with some level of fidelity, you're going to see this amount of improvement in terms of percentile rank. So the example that you're seeing on your screen is one that has a positive impact of 23 percentile points, which is a pretty significant impact. The other way that you might see evidence-based indicators reported in terms of impact is just through evidence levels. So some of the sites that you're going to be looking at, you're going to see some evidence levels. And you can see there's different levels: strong, moderate, and promising. And so those are just areas that you want to be familiar with to know that when you're looking at those different study results, you kind of have a general idea of if this is good or not good. So how do we know what approaches are actually evidence-based? One of your assignments and tasks this week is going to be exploring some of these different sites. You're going to be taking some time to look at what works clearinghouse, evidence for ESA, effect sizes through visible learning, ed reports, all of those different places. You're going to have a little time to research and explore and to be able to see how these different sites are organized. There are other sites besides the one that you're seeing on your screens, but these are probably the most commonly used ones, and the ones that I think are easiest to navigate and easiest to um, figure out and utilize for those of us who might not be full statisticians. So your activities this week are going to be designed to provide you with some time to explore those evidence-based resources, and those resources are then going to help you complete the at-risk populations presentation assignment. So if you haven't taken the opportunity to watch the video with the explanation and description of your at-risk populations presentation assignment, I would make sure and recommend that you do that first before you get into the exploration of resources. But your resource exploration, there is instructions in your content folder for tonight, and it's going to take you through several different areas to explore. And those areas are going to help you narrow down and pinpoint some strategies to use in your presentation assignment. And so the areas you're going to be looking at are cultural competency and responsiveness, and your resources are going to take you through the opportunity to explore some of those different resources for those areas. You'll be looking at some resources for novice reduction. You'll also be exploring what works clearinghouse, evidence for ESA, and ed reports if you have time. So after you've learned about your presentation, learned and thought a little bit more about evidence-based strategies, and have done your exploration of resources, um, hopefully we will have hit the two learning objectives that we're really working on this week, which are the evidence-based strategies and the impact of those, and then being able to utilize those to close achievement gaps with our at-risk student populations.